Tell us about you and your practice and your focus in your practice.
I'm a patent attorney. I'm a European patent attorney and a German patent attorney. We have this divide here. And I work mainly as a European patent attorney, which means my main office of correspondence is the European Patent Office. So I do prosecution work, which means I do a lot of strategic work with my clients to come up with good patent applications, drafting patent applications, filing patent applications. And then my office is of course the EPO I directly correspond with, but I also conduct then the international patent prosecution. So I coordinate these patent applications all over the world. And as you can imagine, these things are big projects and you have a lot of data and a lot of information that you have to collect and have under control. I am also strategically involved in freedom to operate, which means if clients don't only look for exclusivity, so they want their own patent portfolio, they have to take care that they don't infringe any other patents. And sometimes I'm also involved in litigations.
With all that, I mean, how did you hear about or first come to LiquidText?
That was actually a little bit before the pandemic, I would say. So I think it dates back, if I know that, remember, time passes so quickly that I'm not so sure, but I think it was before that. And we were thinking here, of course, the thought about going paperless was coming along. And I think I'm a person who is open for new things. And so I was looking for something that would overcome paper and would potentially be even better than paper. So because paper has actually its disadvantages. And there's one thing like over a project of 10 years, then sometimes you would have printed the one document, 10 times. And each time you don't have your markings anymore and you start from scratch. And it was a great idea for me to think, well, how great would it be if I had this preserved? And I could go back to this ever and ever again. So, and what we did before, my office would be full of files, folders. But sometimes, where's this folder? And in which folder did I have it? So accessibility has always been quite a thing. And then, of course, it got accelerated with home office and the pandemic, where we all were forced to actually work in different locations.
What challenges does LiquidText overcome for you?
It did have features that I didn't find anywhere else. And then I started trying it, and I thought, oh, I haven't seen anything like that. And then I went through going through it, trying it, and I thought, this fits me quite well. And this was actually the start of my LiquidText marriage.
Well, very good. So then, I guess, what specific features or other factors drew you to the app and started that marriage?
I think the first thing that attracted me is that in a project, I can collect all documents that are important to me for this one file. So I had them all in one place. Before that, it was always a problem of they were kind of everywhere. They were in this place and this place, or you found something in the internet, or you whatever, where you get your information from, right? And LiquidText has this convenient project organization where you can build it. Of course, you start with a couple of documents, and then you can always add and add and add, and you have all of these documents in one place. And it solved my problem that I lost information, and I had it at my fingertips. and wherever I go. So if I have my laptop with me, I have it. If I'm in a discussion with a client, I just open it and say, here it is. Wherever I am, I have, and this gives me comfort, very much comfort. I have the information at hand because it's so complicated information, you will never have it all in your head. So in former times, I had to have a lot of my head. I was always afraid I'm forgetting something and I don't find it anymore. And this was one of the very important features. A second feature was that not only the documents, I could sort of drag out into the workspace important citations. So we lawyers don't invent anything. We use things that are there. And if we make an argument, we have to be sure that it's there. And nothing is more dramatic than losing your fact basis. Why you wanted to make this argument, because then it sort of evaporates. So it's not only that the documents were there, I immediately, and this is because I'm a visual person, I like the concept of the workspace where I can collect important citations around one aspect. And they can come from very different documents, and they usually do come from different documents. So this is what I like in LiquidText. I can connect documents. Whereas before, and every other system that I used is always document by document. Whereas LiquidText connects documents, and I can collect out of all the documents the important citations around one aspect. That's also important. So this doesn't get lost. In former times, that was actually only then available in your brief. Of course, you had your arguments in your brief, and then you cited what you had as evidence behind that. But now I have it already there, and I can go directly back into the original source. And that's also important because you need the original source and not some citation where somebody maybe made a typo or did something wrong. I need to see what was the original evidence. I need to go where it is. And losing a citation or saying, oh my God, where is it? Or is this absolutely correct? Is no issue anymore. It's just a click.
So when you first picked up LiquidText, did you have like an aha moment? This is it. This is exactly what my mind is doing, and I can work with it just as much better than paper.
I think I had an aha moment. And that was in one project where there was a very central graph, which I needed all the time. And I just put it out in the central part of the workspace. And I had the first time the feeling, and I did never have to look for this again. Like, oh, where was this graph? Where do I find this graph again? And I just had it, yeah, here. Yes, this was it. This was surrounding it. I could collect. So this was the aha, but I'm also a visual person. I didn't have this graph in my mind. And then where is it? And if I now have it in front of me in a collection that you do on your workspace, I go into it and it's immediately the thoughts are there. So that, I think that was a very, very important step for me in working with LiquidText.
Okay, that the European Patent Office has made LiquidText available to all their examiners?
Yes, I did. For a while, it's already a while ago, I think. And I think I've seen it, or people have been saying it, that somebody has in proceedings that somebody had LiquidText. So I have not personally seen it. I usually don't see that, but I've heard about it, and I know that that they do. And I am also not so surprised that this is the case. It tells me that the reason why I like working with it is not so unique, potentially. Um, it, because of all these reasons that I told you before, I mean, this is not hitting me only as an attorney. This is hitting, of course, also the examiners. They do the other side, right? So an examiner has to write an examination report and maybe a second and a third, and the file goes on for years. And they are under time pressure, and they need to be fast and have information ready. So it does not surprise me.
Have you used LiquidText in court yet, or before a
Yes,
patent board?
yes, yes, I have. In the meantime, I've used it twice now, and it actually went well. I'm certainly a user who uses it every day and all the time and very intensely. It's rarely that I do something without having the LiquidText open, because all my information is there, right? This is how I did it. And if you once done that, I mean, the whole work is stored in there.
How do you, I guess, describe or qualify your level of experience with LiquidText? Like, for example, would you be a moderate user, an expert level user?
In terms of knowing it all, I'm probably not an expert, but in terms of making it useful for myself and doing it all the time and being able to access information and work with it, I think yes, I would qualify myself an expert.
Specifically, how does it help you in your practice? In other words, does it
Um,
save time, reduce paper?
yeah, definitely reduce paper. I've not printed something in years. I've really gone completely paperless. So this is one thing, and I did oral proceedings only with the computer. I still had my paper copy, although, so I printed something there, yes. I had it with me. I mean, you can always have a computer breakdown or something like that. You want to have I still need some kind of a safeguard, but in principle, I'm not printing anymore. I'm not using paper anymore. This is one thing, and it saves me time because, as I said before, information I've gathered once is preserved. So I don't have to do it again. I find it even after a year or so, I can go back and I have it there. So it saves paper and it saves time. But that's probably a personal thing is that I'm a mind mapping person, which means I start analyzing things in a random way. And the workspace allows me, it's like a pinboard, I think is the right word, is you can collect this here, not exactly knowing yet what it might help you. And then this can evolve with your thoughts, you sort of things like that. Now that wasn't helpful, you just delete it again. And then you resort it. Yeah, you can, it's so flexible. I can completely sort it fresh. And so it follows my brain. It's the first system that follows my brain. And in the earlier days, I had heaps of pieces of paper where I scribbled stuff on, yeah, and then you're impatient, you don't write good enough you won't be able to read it anymore later. So that doesn't happen in LiquidText because you didn't say really exactly where the citation were, and then you look for it for ages. So this doesn't, the citation is just there,
Okay.
and the source is there. So it helps sorting the mind and preserving the analysis. Already having younger attorneys do it, whereas I'd like you to do it, also because they can help me with it. That's another thing which is very helpful. So if I have a young attorney or a trainee working for me and working up a file for me, he can just make a LiquidText, and then I don't have to collect all the documents. I can just start from there. But if somebody is just putting in all the important documents, which is the most laborious thing in the beginning, and to have it all OCR'd and things like that, and then I have a very easy start, and we can communicate over this. I can share my LiquidText with somebody else, and he gets my thoughts. So and has a jump start into it.
In your patent practice, different than other litigation is your projects go on for years, don't they?
They go on for years. That is correct. So the lifetime of such a patent portfolio can be decades. And it goes from very early stages of analysis of what do we want to file, to filing it, to prosecuting it, to defending it, enforcing it. So, and that can be 20 years. And it's not one project. I always say I have never one project. It's always multiple projects. It's a growing thing because a product, when it's developed from its infancy, when you start working with it until it goes to the market, and I'm working in the field of pharma, so this doesn't have a quick product turnover, but rather one where development goes over decades. And so it's a very long time where you are involved in pretty much the same thing. And it shifts, the focuses shift, but the information, you still need the information that you had 10 years ago. You still need to know what happened in the beginning, because later on, if you defend, you still need to know where it all came from. So information access is very important.
With those lengthy projects going from basically starting for the research well before it's a patent to patent and possibly patent prosecution, I have trouble, like, where did I leave off? In other words, going back into a project, getting back to exactly where I left off. Do you have that issue as well? And
Oh, all the time, of course, because, for example, if you go into prosecution, you answer an office action, you've got your thoughts, and then it may take 1.5 years until you hear the next time from the office. And then you have to take up the thread again. And again, it's important that you're in the project as quickly as possible, because otherwise it takes you ages to see what were my thoughts, why did I actually argue this, and where was the information coming from for my arguments. And so, yes, it is very important that after a period of time, you can get into your thoughts again very quickly.
and knowing that your work actually delves right into research of the companies, this isn't something we discussed before, but are there any companies that are using LiquidText for their research that you can collaborate with?
I have been telling,
Okay.
why don't you use that? Because the same issue is in-house, that you have to have a lot of information ready, accessible, manageable.
Okay. Does it help that LiquidText now works with Windows Surface devices?
Oh, absolutely. Without that being the case, I would never have started with it. So it was absolutely important that LiquidText is doing that, because our firm does not use Apple. only as iPads. We do have it as a supplement, but we use Windows here, as many European companies, I think, do. So it was very, very important that that it's supported by these systems.
Okay, I gather the mobility of the iPad is really important, and here you have LiquidText right on it.
The iPad is synchronized with, so I can use my iPad and write on my iPad, and then I see immediately it coming up on my screen. So because it and this is really good. This is when I started using the iPad as well. And of course, it's very handy because I can just take the iPad and I have my projects with me anywhere. I can read it in train. I can read it on my sofa if I want to. I can read it, of course, next to my workplace. It gives me a lot of flexibility. The only thing that the iPad has, if I only use the iPad, if you really work with a workspace, it's a bit small. So my usual work setting is I have, and you don't see this now, of course, I have huge screens. So I have really this screen and two of them. And this is where the workspace gets manageable for me because I have so much in the workspace and you cannot just scroll around it all the time. You need an overview. So this is where the real benefit, and also the benefit of having 3 or 4 documents open next to each other. And this is where the benefit comes in, that you can detach the workspace onto your other screen. So I would have one big screen just for the documents and the document list, and then I would have the big screen just for the workspace. And you have many workspaces now, so you can switch and for each and different items, however you organize yourself, you have a different workspace. That's a very good tool, because earlier on I used to have such huge workspace that it was not manageable anymore. Now you can organize yourself very well with the different workspaces. So, but still a big screen is helpful. And then you can have 4 documents next to each other and you can scroll them. You can put exactly these things that you need to look at the same time next to each other. Very often we have very long documents and figures which are at the end of it. The figure description, however, is somewhere middle in the document. You can arrange, and this is a organization thing. I have the figures always separate. So I can have the figures and the description next to each other, and I can, here's the figure, here's the description. No scrolling back and forth, and what was this again? And what was this again? And of course, if you have some important information, you just take the figure, put it out into the workspace, and next to it, the explanation. And you will not scroll back and forth forever anymore because it's there and you've combined the two informations that you need to be together.
Okay. Thank you very much for the time that you've devoted to this.